Addicts, welcome back to In the Zone. Pete Coles, MV Pete Coles, pulled one off last week from Biddeford Pool, Maine. Unbelievable show we had last week. Special shout out to our special guest, Will Jackson, who I thought was fabulous, did an unbelievable job with us. And Pete, as usual, was able to pull it all together. And we drove it home with one headlight. We drove it home with one headlight, but it's great to be back. The weather is cooperating with us beautifully here in July, and we're excited to be in the studio, back in the studio, to talk to you about what's going on in the hoop world, folks, and there's plenty going on. Plenty going on. We jump off this segment of our show. We enter the show every single week with Pete's Corner. And Pete's Corner gives us three questions that Pete formulates, postulates, and positions for me. And without any avail to the questions, I do my best to answer them. I think Pete has been unbelievably on fire in this segment. Every week comes up with three good ones. Pete, you're on the clock.
All right. First question. Does the Summer League actually help teams who need to rebuild evaluate talent?
Great question. Very, very valid question as to what's going on right now. And so what you're talking about is, what does the Summer League actually do? If you're pulling your best players out of there very quickly, you've looked at them, you gave them a little bump here and there. You're bringing back some second-year players. There was a couple of note there that I took. I didn't understand why the Wizards left Alex Sarr in the Summer League, even sent him to the Summer League. I mean, he's a top 3 pick last year. Sent him to the Summer League and left him in the Summer League playing. The results were mid, but he had an unbelievably poor shooting night down there, and I don't know, is there a message being sent to him? You need to play more, you need to improve more. I don't know, but let's go break it down because there's so many constituencies in Summer League, right? So it's the rookies, previously just drafted. There are the non-draftees. People who did not get drafted, those are the guys who are really trying to come in and make a name for themselves. And then you have players who are already on the team or players who get an invite for whatever reason. Maybe they were in the G League, they were in Europe doing well, but that's how they populate those rosters. And it's not always something it's not always symmetrical. It doesn't always look good. And you saw that this year a lot with heavy turnover numbers in some of the games. Some of the teams barely eclipsing 60 and 70 points in the game.
Wow.
And so that type of rhythm and chemistry that you and I talk about that's very, very much associated with basketball is very, very difficult to duplicate in that short amount of time. All right? But there's an old saying that came to me when I was a young coach, and it's players play. So the players that are there, they're going to play. If you're a guy who's in Category 1 and you're a recent draft pick like Ace Bailey, you're Trey Johnson, you're picked 5th and 6th in the draft, you want to go down there and you want to show everybody why they picked you 5th and 6th, why that money that you're getting is valid. And then you're going to go to that next rung of second rounders, who are like, why did I go in the second round? Maxime Reynaud, from Stanford, one of my guys. I thought Kalkbrenner was okay in the summer series as well as a couple of other guys taken in the second round that might have had a chip on their shoulder. But make no mistake about it, these gentlemen are fighting. Anybody who's not in that top echelon are fighting for a roster spot somewhere. And they were just talking on the news the other day about, the Celtics basically, there's a fight going on for one last roster spot. Now, if somebody can get one of those other guys that has a roster spot, well, then that's the way it works. But right now, some of those guys are solidified. You have Nehemias Quaid or Baylor Shearman came down and played pretty well in the Summer League, although his strength at one time for me was his shooting. And right now, he seems to be more of a facilitator, a ball handler, somebody who's trying to do a little bit more than outside of the box, maybe trying to prove to the Celtics that he can do other things. I get it. And then, you got those journeymen, some of them that have been out 2, 3, 4 years, and they're trying to get back in and get a run at the NBA shot, and it's all good. It just doesn't make for very good basketball. And it was, if you go up to 4 rounds in the draft, which I've advocated for, you're going to get 4 more guys, a couple of more guys that you're going to have in there that are trying to make your team that you're drafting, and that maybe you'll sign to a 2-way contract. But that's a great question, Pete. I really think the Summer League has a great purpose, but I don't know that, they're executing properly. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement there. And to be honest with you, if you're going to bring your good players down there, let them stick it out. Because I'll give you an example. The guy who was just the MVP was Filipowski. All right? Kyle Filipowski. Now, we know what went down last year with his draft position, sliding all the way into the second round when Pete and I had him at number 8.
Yeah.
All right, we want to say that. Pete and I had him at number 8. This is going to be one of our better draft stories because this young man was MVP of the Summer League, and he absolutely tore it up down there. Now, are the Jazz ready and positioned to win and to be that type of franchise? I don't see it right now, but they're getting better. I would say that I would give them, a plus for getting better, But the Summer League, as a whole, right now, they've got to do a lot of things with the NBA, but they've got to make the games better. And one of the reasons the games are bad is you got guys out there. If you look now, you see some of these 3-point percentage numbers coming back from the combine, the Summer League, and it's like he shot 19%, from 3-point range. He was under 20% in 3-point range. That's when you know that you need to do other things. You're not a 3-baller. You're not a guy who should be standing behind that line. You should be in, setting screens, going to the glass, penetrating, dragging your man out of help situations. You should be doing all of those things. Instead, everybody just stands around on the line, and they don't integrate the other 4 players that don't have the basketball. And that's one thing I think the NBA needs to change drastically. They're ball dominant. Whoever has the ball, everybody turns around, including everybody in the crowd, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. The other guys aren't supposed to be standing there looking at them. And that creates too much help defense. It's one of the reasons the lanes aren't open as much, and that's why everybody runs high pick and roll ball screen now, because it's one way to get the big guy out of the paint and to create a little bit of action right away. But that in itself, too, has become boring because everybody and their grandmother is running high ball screen. Back in the day, you had Malone and you had Stockton running ball screen. Nobody else was doing it. They were killing people with it, but a lot of the other people were in triangle situations like Jordan and the Bulls were running, the Lakers were running, triangle, Tex Winter situations where much more involvement of the players, much more movement of the players, and then when you wanted to strike and find your best guy in that spot, it was much easier to do. Right now, I think, I love Michael Jordan. I think he's one of the greats of all time, but in this league, everybody thinks it's as wide open as it is. It's not, because they have 4 help defenders standing in the lane that don't have to do anything else but watch the ball. And that creates a terrific advantage for the defense, and that's why the rim is as guarded as well as it is. It's like a game of Ring Alivio back home in the Bronx. They're guarding the rim heavy, and there's nowhere to get in there. You got 6'10", 6'10", 6'10". It's difficult to do. But let's focus and come back to the point of your question, the Summer League. Stop holding it in Vegas, number one. I don't think that's a good idea. Way too hot out there in this time of year. Bring it a little more centrally located so you might get a little bit wider fan support.
Cleveland, Ohio,
Indiana. Those places are boring to me too. But if you want to go to South Carolina where everybody can play some golf and have some fun and do some of that, I'd be all for it. You might even see me get down there. But I think they need to do better in reflection also. Let's take it also one more step with the coaching. I don't know who coaches these teams. I don't know if they're the head assistant coach. I don't know who's in charge of these teams, but a lot of times they're making political statements or social statements and bringing in a coach. There was a first-time female coach, and it's all well and good, but I think generally they need to pump up the level of their coaching. I think some of their other coaches should be involved in that. I know they're in the building. General managers are in the building watching their draft picks and hoping. But I think that they would have their better coaches a little bit more involved in that because it showed. I thought the level of play wasn't very good. That's a good one, though, Pete.
Question number 2.
That's a good one.
With the passing of Hulk Hogan today,
wow.
Does the NBA have a player in their league at any time that has transcended pop culture like a Hulk Hogan did with wrestling?
Wow. No. And I didn't know Hulk Hogan passed away today, so Pete's hitting me with that one. And never been a big wrestling fan myself, but
That's a name
always
that
did.
everybody knows.
Always did. Yeah, he's a phenomenon. I know who. I never watched wrestling, from the time I was 10 years old, but I know exactly who Hulk Hogan is. And so, yes, he did have that step outside kind of phenomenon. I don't think that, I can't think of a lot of guys that have had it like him. That are that household name, and may he rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan.
It's been a rough week, yeah.
It's been a rough week for us. So I think, I would have to say no to that. In the basketball world, I can't think of a baseball or football player, in the time that I've been around that have transcended the sport like he has,
Maybe Tom Brady.
Maybe Brady, maybe Jordan, but.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't know. He's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And what he did for wrestling was, my God, they were they had guys chewing on the belt buckle back in the day, and this guy brought them mainstream.
Yep.
So if you tell me that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird took the NBA mainstream, I can 100% see that. But if we're talking about wrestling right now, the guy who took it mainstream and took it outside, because be honest with you, like, when I was a kid, nobody really was talking about wrestling not being legitimate. People used to look at it and go like, yeah, Big Ernie Ladd, and then you'd see, some of the stuff you would see as you got older.
George.
Right,
Yeah.
But, it was one of these things that, nobody, and so for him, in a thing where a lot of people don't believe wholeheartedly that it's real, it's set up competitions, and it's, I'll give you a quick wrestling story in a second, but they had, where they're transcending the sport though in that level with him it's unmistakable.
Yeah,
it's unmistakable, and I can't think of other. Maybe Ali. In the boxing realm,
yeah.
Maybe Muhammad Ali, but when people
Mike Tyson,
when people don't think what you're doing is real,
yeah,
and yet you can still be that transcendent figure, that's star power to me. All right, I'm going to give you a quick wrestling story from me.
All right.
When I worked at Archbishop Malloy, we had the great Candy Anderson. We had a couple of teachers there that used to hustle offside, and what they would do is set up wrestling matches. All right, and so one of the guys, he invites me out. I go with one of my friends, and we go to see wrestling that night, and it's live.
Sure.
And they're pros. And it's the first time I've ever been in a situation like that. So the guy's name is Louie, and Louie knows I'm in there. We got great seats, and all of a sudden, Louie calls me and says, hey, I need you and your buddy to come back. I go, Louie, we're not wrestling tonight, Louie. I'm going to tell you that. If you think me and him are going to go wrestle, he goes, no. He goes, one of my guys didn't show up, though. He goes, and I got to tell Tiger Chung Lee that he has to fight twice. I said, well, Louie, are you going to pay him twice? He goes, yeah, I got no problem with that. But he's got to lose twice. And we go into the locker room, and there's Tiger Chung Lee tearing the place apart. He's like, Louie, I didn't come in here to lose 2 times, Louie. So to give it that realm, once I saw that, I was like, okay. Louis calling the shots. Whoever's the moderator that night is calling the shots.
Yep.
But
that's the booker. That's what they call the booker.
But may he rest in peace. Again, if there are a couple, there aren't too many that did what he did.
Right.
No question about that.
That's why I asked the question, because the names that come to mind are like LeBron or Michael Jordan. That's it.
Not even in his realm. Really.
Yeah,
I mean, really. When you slice it all down, not. No way.
Okay.
No, he was a transcendent figure. If that's what you're looking for, that's the guy. That's the guy. Hulkamania, they had everybody. How many guys were ripping off their shirt back in the day? Doing the Hulk Hogan pose and everything. I mean, I think he's pretty transcendent.
All right.
Good one, Pete.
Final question. Does the Eurobasket tournament mean anything other than just guys having a good time?
Guys having a good time. Maybe somebody getting.
Because I guess Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing for Greece.
Yeah, they go back and they do this.
Name that's
in the off years of Olympics and stuff like that. I think it's fun, but I'm a big proponent that you need to get away from it once in a while. You need to stay, the constant play that these guys are in. If you were involved in that Olympic situation that just ended, you went from the Olympics right into your basketball season.
Yep.
And now you have the playoffs dragged. The playoffs are dragged way, way into June now. We just ended, and it was in June, the end of June. And now you're going to tell these guys they got to report back to camp in the middle of September. I get it. They love to play, but if I was a pro coach, if I was an agent, I would be really talking to my players that were under my direction about maintaining and about having a legacy that will last much longer, because I think you see, a kind of a way of looking at things. I mean, look at what LeBron James has done. Really been injury-free for a lot of his career. You don't see him doing too many crazy things. He has an eye on longevity. He had an eye on this has to last. And some of these young men are going in flying off. I'm looking at Cooper Flagg the other day, and I said, I bet he broke his finger. I bet he messed up part of his hand going in there slamming on somebody. And I get it. That's part of it. But now you're being paid for your body. Your body's worth millions and millions of dollars to you. You need to start to treat your body as the number one asset that you have, because guess what? It is. And so I love all that stuff about basketball, but there is a time when you're taking your health into consideration so that the fans will go ooh and ah. But the fans won't be there to go ooh and ah when you're out, when you're injured. When you're no longer able to play.
Somebody got to LeBron really early and said, you need to treat this like a business, son. And he took it to heart.
Go look at a guy named Grant Hill.
Yep.
Go look at a guy named Tracy McGrady. Go look at some of these guys that were absolutely phenomenal with their ability to fly around the gym and to go into these acrobatic different things. But you still got to land. You still got to come down. And those players severely restricted their playing careers due to injuries that are exactly the ilk of what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
It's a clutch, fellas. You can only pop the clutch so many times before you need a new clutch. And I think in this modern day era where these players are being paid $50 million, $60 million, now we've seen a $70 million contract, man, I would never dunk the ball. I'd tell my players, don't even think about it. 2-foot jump stops, be strong, because these guys are getting knocked out. How many times do you think Jalen Brunson gets knocked to the ground in the course of a year? A lot. And they're being knocked to the ground when he's in a vulnerable position, being knocked to the ground by a guy who's 7 foot, 300 pounds. How much of that do you think the body can take, endure, and perform at the level that you need to as a professional? So,
hey, man, ask the wrestlers. They know how to take a bump, and they said it still hurts.
It hurts, and they got a big old thing. You see the floor. They got the cushion down there. They got the springs down there, and they can still get hurt. You're coming off the top of a 8-foot ring rope, and you're flying in the air. And anybody can get hurt in that situation.
Yep.
No question about it. And it's like, it's difficult, right? Because if you got a center fielder and he's going after that fly ball, you want a guy that's going after that fly ball like with no reservation about hitting that wall. But he's going to hit the wall, and you're going to get hurt, and you're going to get injured. And so are you the kind of guy that has the mindset of, I'm going to stick around and I'm going to have longevity? Or are you one of those guys that, Lenny Dykstra? Remember Lenny? They called him Nails, the center fielder. He was chewing on baseballs out there. I mean, he's a tough guy. But to think that his career might have been shortened by that, that's absolutely part of the equation, Pete. That's a great question because it hits at a lot of things. And when they're playing so much, I think that that's an area where if I was an agent, I would be telling Giannis, you're gonna lock it down. You're going to lock it down and you're going to stay within the framework of the NBA season. And also, if I'm an NBA franchise and I'm doling out $70 million, I don't want you riding the Ferris wheel.
I don't want you riding enjoy a few rounds of golf in the off season.
Yeah.
Right.
I can get in on that, 100%. But when you start to look at it, $70 million, okay, over 10 years, is $700 million.
Yeah.
Okay? $70 million over 2 years is $140 million. Somebody ought to ask Jason Williams, okay, the guy who's in the broadcasting booth right now, what was he not supposed to be doing? Riding a motorcycle. What did he do? Rode a motorcycle. How did it end? Not well. That's why he's in the booth. He was a Duke star, point guard, drafted very, very highly. Played very, very short time in the pros because he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. All right, Pete. Three great questions. Now, let's piggyback into that a little bit because now we're gonna take you through the actual hitting of the lottery. All right, Pete and I every single week we get lottery tickets from the store right down the way here, and we're in for $300 million this week, and it's a big one. Pete and I are hoping like crazy. Okay, but maybe Pete and I, if we were a little taller and stayed in the gym a little longer. Holy Pete! Oh, wait till you hear these, Pete. Number one pick, $62.7 million.
Per?
No, over the term.
Okay.
That's what I couldn't find out, and I think it's 4, but it might be 5. And what they do is they let them go into their first contract. Usually after 3 years, they can renegotiate after that. Number 2, $56.1 million. You see, here's one of the reasons I say, why do you have an agent? They're telling you how much money you're going to get. Your agent can't negotiate that number. That's your number. Why have an agent? That's what I don't get. Why are you going to pay somebody to come in and take a piece of your number that they can't move? Now, if you tell me you're an agent and you can get me from 62 to 70, you're hired. Right? But you can't say that. And that's what I don't understand, why these guys, at least on their first contract, don't just go it alone. Get a family advisor, get somebody who's a lawyer to look at it, but you don't need a guy who's in for a percentage. You just need some chat GPT AI. Check out that contract and make sure you're okay. Number 3, $50.4 million, $45.5 million. Let's go all the way down to the end of the lottery. Here's the difference, though. And this is what people were talking about with Ace Bailey. Not going to work out for teams, not going to meet with teams, not being affable to the teams that he was talking to, maybe posturing about, I don't want to go here and I don't want to go there. You saw Colin Murray Boyles get drafted, jumped up, and the profanities that came out of his mouth weren't positive. But here's one of the reasons why you really got to play it straight. At the top, you're at $62.7 million. At the bottom of the lottery, you're $23.4 million.
Ouch.
That's a big difference. That's a big difference. And that's what a bad agent, that's what a bad approach, that's what a lot of things can do. I think Ace Bailey was lucky because I think if a lot of other players come into this, unless you're a top 5 guy, I wouldn't try that strategy because you can wind up at 14 really, really quick. And if you saw what happened to Filipowski, we had Filipowski at 8. That's $31.3 million. He went like 32 maybe. What do you think he lost in that transaction?
Yeah.
Now, when he gets his 3rd year and he gets under his contract, he's going to be a bazillionaire. But right now, he's under a short-term contract, and I get it, $23 million. It's great. But now, Pete, if you divide that by 4, let's assume it's 4, right? That comes out to maybe, a little bit over 6, $6 million a year. Some of these guys, Cooper Flagg was getting more than that while he was in his NIL. Some of these guys right now are on the borderline. Okay, I'm a lottery pick. Why would I go in the lottery? I can stay in college and get that same dollar figure, maybe even more. So that's interesting, that layout. But again, why have an agent if you're laid into that kind of structure? Pete, Marcus Smart, remember him from the Celtics?
Yep.
Tough guard. He's going to bring a lot. I like what the Lakers franchise is doing right now. They sold the franchise. Jeannie Buss gets to stay around, but the guy who took the franchise over has come in breathing fire, and he has said, we want ballers. We want guys who play every night. We don't want guys with load game management, and they're going about it because Marcus Smart, if there's top 3 toughest guys in the NBA right now, he's one of the 3. He might be number 1. He's going to bring that toughness. He's going to bring that defensive mindset. Now, good luck getting Luka and LeBron in that defensive stance. But, hey, I think it's a good pickup. 2 years, $11 million, and he's 31 years old. You like it, Pete?
Yeah, that's that's probably a bargain by today's standards.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
$5.5 million? That's a deal because this guy's a dog. This guy's going to bring something to your team right away. He's a lot like Russell Westbrook, without that high level like nuttiness that Westbrook brings to the table. You know, Smart just comes to play. I liked him when he was in college. I think it's great. Dame Lillard recently was let go by the Bucks. The Bucks now need to eat. This is a Rich Sutter rule that I want to see changed. The Bucks now need to eat $23 million a year of the rest of that contract for every year that contract goes. The Portland Trailblazers, where he was originally, it's kind of a 360 circle, he's going to sign with the Portland Trailblazers and come back. Interesting kind of note, and I wonder if this applies to Jason Tatum and all of our other Achilles tendon warriors out there who got blown up. Tyrese Halliburton, all right, they all got blown up with the low top sneakers or whatever it might be, who knows, but they all got blown up with Achilles injuries. What Lillard said was he was not opposed to coming back next year, to trying to make it back next year. Most people in that circumstance with Achilles, it's a very, very difficult injury. It impacts everything you do as a basketball player, everything. And so when they say in 1 year, I was interested to hear that Lillard might try and make it come back. I don't know about Tatum. I don't know about the other guys, Halliburton. And again, take it for when it happened also, because that's critical as well. So you got Lillard's, his happened way earlier in the season. Now he's been out, surgery, healing, and now he's getting ready to go. So it really does matter about when it happened. Now you go Tyrese Halliburton, happens in the playoffs in June, in the finals, almost at the very last game of the year. And now you're thinking about, you probably ain't getting him back. But then the question raises about Tatum, you know, and so much of it goes to how well these people heal. There's people that heal well, and there's people that take longer to heal. I think Tatum, the way he's been going, he might have a chance, but it was interesting to see that. Little bit of a bump here. Kyle Filipowski, again, we'll mention it, MVP of the Summer League, and I thought it was interesting because his team didn't win a game. Chris Paul, CP3, going back to the Clippers. I don't get what the Clippers are doing here a little bit. I get bringing CP3 back. I'm surprised the Spurs didn't want to kind of hold him, but they just picked up Bradley Beal as well. And so I don't get all of that like action unless they're pretty certain that Kawhi Leonard's not coming back. Because now you got CP3, James Harden, you know, Kawhi Leonard, and Bradley Beal. And those guys, if they look in the mirror as basketball players, very, very similar. Chris Paul, more of a team-building point guard. Harden is more in the ball control model that we talk about sometimes. And then the other side, Kawhi, he had a decent year last year, but he's been so injured, so hurt. But so has Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal went over to Phoenix, and they barely saw him. They went in and made a big trade for him, gave up DeAndre Ayton, which I was not a fan of, and now you're seeing some of these picks just coming all the way back inside, Pete. I don't get it. All right, Pete, I'm going to give you, we got some stuff here. So we're going to give you right now, we're going to go through, we have our top 25 college basketball teams right now. And we have our top 30 laid out, 1 through 30 NBA teams with all of what's gone on, all of the free agency, all of the pickups, all of the draft picks. Everybody's set. Everybody's loaded, kind of, right now. We're going to go 1 through 30, Pete. All right? What do you want to do, Pete? You want to go NCAA or you want to go NBA first?
Well, since we were talking about the NBA, let's start with that.
We'll stay in the NBA. Beautiful. Great call, Pete. All right. Because I think you're going to like my NCAA stuff. NBA right now, this team, this franchise is, with everything they're doing, is the most loaded franchise in the NBA right now and into the foreseeable future. That's the OKC Thunder. Just coming off a championship. Great young coach in Daigneault. MVP superstar Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Say it, Pete, the Kentucky Star. Just unbelievable year that he had. And again, he's the recipient of that new $70 million contract. The Thunder are loaded. They've got Holmgren, Jalen Williams. They've got some very, very good players. And when these guys are drafting, I wonder what they're thinking about, because they have no room to put anybody. Anybody who's trying to make the Thunder, you better start trying to beat out one of the guys they got, because their roster right now is loaded. Pete, I'm gonna gamble a little bit here, because I think they showed some chutzpah a little bit here. The Rockets, I like the Rockets. I like Ime Udoka. I love the athleticism, the youth, and all the exuberance that they bring to the floor when they go. They have one of the Thompson twins. They're two of the best athletes. Those twins are two of the best athletes in the game right now. But they went ahead this year and they said, we're playing for broke. And we're going to add Kevin Durant, the old man in the NBA. We're going to bring him in. He can score still. He's a locker room guy still. He can do a lot of things. I moved the Rockets up into number 2 spot because of that pickup of Durant. I got the Pacers number 3. I loved what I saw from them this year, and I like Rick Carlisle. I really think it's going to be good. Now, again, I might have looked at this a little bit with Pollyannic glasses on right now, because they may not have Halliburton, and that's something that I brought into consideration. But I still like the Pacers the way they're built. I thought personally they should have tried to hold on to Miles Turner, because I think he's really good. The Cavaliers in the 4 spot, I think they show up. We talked about this a little bit. We talked about like the University of Virginia, the year they were one of the teams that got beat by a 16 seed. What happened? They recalibrated and came back and won the national title. Does this happen to the Cavaliers, or did that punch in the face really matter? And we'll see in the playoffs. They had an unbelievable regular season. They were fabulous all year long. Donovan Mitchell emerging as one of the NBA stars, but then came to playoffs and pow. They got knocked out really quick by the Pacers, and we'll see if that's something that recalibrates them or something that defeats them a little bit and they go back. But I like the way their team is constructed right now. The Lakers in 5, Pete, they're doing it. I like this guy they brought in to buy the team. I like anybody that has $10 billion. But I also like the fact that they're coming in and they want to turn the Lakers into dogs. Enough of that Hollywood outside, that West Coast stuff. Let's get some dogs in here. Let's get some ballers in here. And let's try and make it run with LeBron James. Although, Pete, you brought up last week, and I'm not sure if that was a foretelling, I'm not sold that the Knicks wouldn't try and get into action here with LeBron. I wouldn't be sold on that right now. The way the Lakers are constituted, though, I don't think that would be a good move for them. I think they're kind of built right now to make a run and let him have his due out there. But I got the Lakers in 5. I got the Knicks in 6. Brunson, everybody back still. But, I didn't think that they did a whole lot to add to what they have. Tyler Kolek, Ariel Hukporti, they have some guys on their bench that are solid, very good, but I don't know that they're going to turn this franchise up to where they go. And keep an eye on Pete's prediction that they may be LeBron hunting. I got the Nuggets in 7. I got the Celtics in 8. All right, I got the Nuggets in 7 because I love Joker. I think what they're doing there is good. I thought Adelman did an admirable job with them in the playoffs and did a good coaching job with them, so I'm okay with the change that they made there. I thought Michael Malone would get picked up here, but it's still not over yet. But I got the Nuggets in there. The Celtics are an 8 because they are probably the most devastated roster that's occurred in this offseason, and I don't see what they've done really. Hugo Gonzalez, I guess, but, like you lost Porzingis. Now you have lost Tatum. You got Holiday out the door. I think they got some problems there. I don't really, I understand why they did it because they were set up poorly with the luxury tax and all the other stuff, but I don't know. Timberwolves, Pete, the Timberwolves. I like Anthony Edwards. He's one of my favorite. And I got the Pistons right here. 2 climbing franchises. Let's see if they can continue to climb. The Pistons have Cade Cunningham, and he really turned into, he's a top 20 pro for sure. I got the Mavericks at 11. You got Kyrie. You got Anthony Davis, you got some good players, and now you added Cooper Flagg. That might be enough, but if they got to stay healthy. I think Gafford and Lively up front, they're pretty good. I think it's a playoff team. I just don't know how much they can go, but I think Flagg could really help this group. I got the 76ers back here and recalibrating a little bit. I think Embiid, after a year off, he might be back and ready to play a little bit. Paul George just had knee surgery, so that's going to be shaky. They got Tyrese Maxey I think they got some things cooking over here. I think they'll be okay. I think they're better than what they showed this year. I like the Orlando Magic, Paolo Banchero. I like the guys up front, the Wagner boys up front too. Clippers are solid, but I don't know what they're doing. They need help up front, and they just went and brought in a lot of guys the same as what they got. You know, the Warriors 15. I probably a little bit more down on the Warriors than this. You know, I left them at 15, but I'm probably down on them a little bit more because I know they got Curry, but when he gets hurt, they really don't have a lot. And Draymond Green's old and tired, and I think they should do something about moving him. His offensive skill set just clogs the game up, and they've gotten away with it a long time when they had him and they had Klay Thompson, you know, the other shooter when they had Curry and Thompson shooting. Got away with it for a while, but right now the whole load is on Curry, and it's weighing down on him. Grizzlies, I like this. Zach Edey, I think, will come back. Make better choices about leaving his feet as much, stay healthier. John Morant's the real key here, though. Is he going to get it back to where he was before all that stuff happened and all that off-court stuff went down? Or is it going to be, you know, another guy who sat out a bunch of games last year, and I just don't know. Scottie Pippen Jr. playing very, very well for them, though. I got the Bucks at 17. They seem right now to be able to hold on to Giannis. They can keep Giannis, Miles Turner, some of the other players that they have. They're okay, but they're not any higher. Even with Giannis and Doc Rivers, they're no higher than 17. I like the Kings. I love what they did. Neek Clifford, their guys are paying attention because they picked up Neek Clifford, who I think is NBA ready right now, and Maxime Reynaud, to me, is the steal of the draft. They got him at 42. The Hawks, you know, they're going to go with Trae Young. They got Quinn Snyder going another round here. You know, they have Clint Capella. I thought they would make some moves in order to make some things happen. They made a few, but they're still in deficit. The Heat culture, very, very solid. A little bit of stuff going on there, but you know they draft very well. I think Kelly Ware can be a very, very good player in this league. I think they have some other players that have been okay that fit Heat culture. But as I said before, Spoelstra, if you think he's the best coach in the league, you got to kind of get him a little bit more arsenal than what he has right now. I understand they want to have Heat culture, but that doesn't say that everybody in the NBA can't fit into Heat culture. I think there's a lot of guys that are really good players that fit into that. They just don't seem to be willing to go get them. You know, the Bulls, Suns, you know, both of those teams kind of middling. I have the Suns maybe even a little higher. They could fall into the abyss, if you ask me. The Bulls, you know, Billy Donovan been there a while. They just don't move the needle. You know, they haven't done anything in order to get talent, haven't done anything to rebuild their roster. And where they draft from, they don't usually get into a situation where they get any game changers in the draft as well. I got the Spurs at 23. That could change, but I didn't like the Harper pick in there when you had Stephen Castle, and we'll see what happens with Wembanyama. That's been one of the quietest things, other than the NBA trying to hide their gambling problems, you know, that they got going on. That Wembanyama thing has been really quiet. I mean,
he's a French player, right?
Thrombosis.
Victor Wembanyama?
Victor Wembanyama, yeah. I mean,
he's not suiting up for France. I know that for sure.
He's not.
Nope. I read it in the same article.
That's a little more serious than I think's being led on.
Yep.
I got the Raptors at 24. I love Scotty Barnes, but they just make terminally bad picks year after year after year. I thought there were some other guys they could have grabbed this year, but I don't get it. We'll see. Blazers 25, Jazz 26. I'm thinking the Jazz are going to be a little bit like the Pistons, where they get some upward mobility this year. The Blazers is not going to move yet. They still don't have any talent. They have, you know, a couple of decent guys there. They have Donovan Clingan, a couple of other guys, but it's going to take some time. Scoot Henderson, they've had some bad draft performance. You know, the Jazz, Pelicans at 27, they could easily be 30. They can easily go to 30. The Nets at 28, I know Will's a big Nets fan, but man, I think they destroyed their team with this draft, taking in 5 guys. I don't even know how many spots on their roster that they have. And if you tell me you don't have 5 roster spots and you drafted 5 guys in the first round, I'd be shaking my head at these guys. I got the Wizards at 29. I'm hopeful for them, but I don't really, you know, I think Koulibaly and Sarr, just, you know, they're just okay. And then I got the Hornets way down there, way down there at 30, Pete, because I don't know what they're doing as a franchise, and I don't like the fact they roughed up that little kid at Christmas time. So we're gonna keep going. I don't forget. I don't like the fact that Steve Kerr benched Jason Tatum. I still let that impact my decisions about Kerr. I don't like that at all. And what they did to that young kid in there, man, that's awful. That's awful. Pete, let's roll with the preseason Super 25. I'm going to go out on a limb again, like I often do. We told you about Maxime Reynard. We thought he was going to be terrific. We told you about Filipowski, Trace Jackson Davis. We've had some pretty good calls here. I'm going to give you one right now. In the number one team in the nation next year, nobody has them. Nobody's picking these guys, and I don't understand it. St. John's.
Really?
St. John's. Rick Pitino. That team, what they did in the portal right now is unbelievable. They remade their whole team. They bring back Zuby, the big man inside, and they have a loaded wings and guards into the concept of what I think Pitino wanted. Whereas, if you remember 2 years ago, Pitino took a whole lot of criticism for talking about some of his guys that they had in the program that were kind of slow. They weren't moving their feet. He said, we got to get a little bit more fast, a little bit more athletic. And I knew what he was saying as a coach. But again, if that was your mom sitting in the press room, I don't think she'd be too happy that your head coach was calling you slow-footed. So it all depends where it lands. But I knew as a coach exactly what he was saying. This year, right now, that's been cleaned up. This team's going to be fast, electric, going to be able to move up and down the floor. They have 3 pros on this team right now. 3 NBA first-round draft picks on this team right now. Watch out for St. John's. Everybody else has kind of been in defense mode. As soon as the season ended, Pitino came out like, Wild West show. Pop, 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 pop. I was like, my God. Then they took Ian Jackson from North Carolina. I was like, oh, my God, they're just loaded. They're loaded. And I can tell you right now, I think they're going to be the best team in the country because I don't really think that they're going to get a lot of pushback in the Big East. You might get a little brushback from UConn. You might get a little bit of brushback, but there's some teams in there that are really, when I went through my preseason polls, which I have here, I was like, wow, this league is shot. ACC is shot. Bottom of the Big East is shot. You could take the bottom of the SEC, put it into the Big East right now, and half of those teams would be in the top of it. Houston, number 2. Houston lost a lot. They lost L.J. Cryer. They lost Joe Tugler. But to get Milo Suzan to pull his name out of the draft and to come back and to sign with them, I thought was really, really big. I like Houston, but I also like Purdue. I like Purdue because they got Braden Smith, their point guard, back, and they've got a couple of big guys up front. They did very well in the portal. They also had this young man who was the heir apparent to Zach Edey, 7'3". Daniel Jacobson spent the year out with an injury. I would expect him to come back and be a force. All right, I got Brigham Young up here at 4 because they have A.J. DeBonta, but there's also it's not like the Rutgers situation where you brought in Ace Bailey and you brought in Dylan Harper, but you didn't have anything else. BYU's bringing in the number 1 player in the country. This is the new NIL, folks. BYU is nailing the number 1 player in the country, and they have a lot left. They have a good roster. So this young man's walking into a loaded team that did very, very well last year. I like BYU. I like Duke right here in the 5 spot. I like Duke a lot in the 5 spot. Really, really solid group that they have coming in. The Boozer twins coming in. They're electric, and they're going to be right away players, probably NBA player after 1 year for sure with Cameron. Caden, I don't know 100%, but that's the number 3 and the number 16 player in the country for them. And I think they're going to be cooking with gasoline. I love Texas Tech. I like Texas Tech in the 6th spot here because I think they've got a really, really solid team. Had Darian Williams returned to Texas Tech, I might have them number 1. He went out and he got a new team, new NIL bag, but, I mean, I don't know how much the differential between the bag at Texas Tech and the new bag that he caught. I really don't know that, but you have a chance to win the national title at Texas Tech. That means something. All right, I go Michigan here. Michigan, Dusty May. These guys worked the portal as well as Pitino's group. They really did a great job. Brought in Yaxo Lendenberg from UAB, who is considering going into the pros, and I think probably would have been a lottery pick. So they drafted him, brought him into Michigan. I think that's going to be a big help. They've also got some other good players back. Watch out for Louisville in the ACC. I might pick them above Duke. I don't know. We'll have to watch them. Pat Kelsey is doing terrific. Florida, number 8, the Gators. They brought in two guards. They're bringing in Boogie from Arkansas, so they got the boogie, and they're bringing in Savion Lee, who is the Princeton guard, and I think that backcourt's going to be very, very similar to Elijah Martin and Clayton. Can they keep it all together? I think they can, because Alex Condon and a couple of other their bigs up front are back, and it's Florida, man. They ain't going to sleep. They're going to get some players. They got money down there. Kentucky, you know, they're just doing a great job. Pope is dope. Love what he's doing, but they're not getting the guys that everybody else, you know, because they used to get guys all the time, and now everybody's getting guys. They would have got A.J. DeBonsa if Calipari was coaching the team at Kentucky and there was no NIL. They get DeBonsa hands down. But now you got NIL. Anybody can pay what they want. Kentucky is feeling the most of that burden right now. I'm a little surprised that Duke hasn't hit it. All right, UCLA, Pete, number 10. The new league assignment, you know, we'll see. But they did bring in some very, very good transfer portal people. Donovan Dent from New Mexico, most notably. Connecticut. Everybody's really high on them. I am too, but not as high as everybody else. I think they lost a lot. I think they continue to lose a lot, and I don't see that they're going into the portal, going into the NIL game with the same fervor that some of these other teams are. I don't know if it's a money issue. I don't know exactly what it is, but right now they seem to be at a little bit of they're way behind St. John's, if you ask me. Iowa State in 13. Gonzaga, 14. Mark Few, how can you bet against that guy? But Iowa State's an interesting one. They were top 5 the last 3 years, really, really solid. They had Kashad Gilbert. They had very, very good backcourt, Tameen Lipsey, but they folded up at the end of the year really inexplicably and bad. I'll see what happens to them. Do they come back with the eye of the tiger, or is this they just been flying really high for a long time and now it's time to come down? I got to go Auburn at 15 right after Gonzaga, and I might even move them up. Tahad Pettiford, DUI the other day. That's not going to slow anybody down. In the Auburn program, that's seriously not even considered a misdemeanor, you know, with all the other stuff they got going on right there. They're the guys who turn flights around. So, but Tahad Pettiford going back there, that will certainly give them a bump. They're going to lose Janai Broom. They're going to lose Dylan Cardwell. They've got some people up front they're going to lose, but I think they can make it work with their guard play being especially good. 16, Wisconsin. They just keep going. This guy is the Browd Brownell of the other side of the Mississippi line. Okay, another guy they say, fire this guy, fire this guy, fire this guy. And every year he comes back and does a great job. Brownell, solid, one of the best Clemson coaches of all time. And Greg Gard out of Wisconsin, they just keep putting it up. And if you put them in at 16, that's about as good as it's going to get for you guys. Alabama, 17. They're going to drop a little bit. They lost a lot. They lost quite a bit in a 2-year period as well. And again, some of these schools that have this hard line, football consortium behind them, you got Alabama, Auburn, they're the big dog there, as much as their basketball teams and their programs have been good. But now that we're slicing up that NIL pizza, believe me, Alabama and Auburn's football teams are going to be eating that pie. And the basketball teams are going to be working to get it done, I think. Arkansas got Calipari. They brought in some really good guards, got some people back, but again, they lost a tremendous amount. Boogie Fland, Adu Thiero, they lost a lot. Arizona, 19. This guy hasn't, you know, if he doesn't produce something a little bit better than what the people at Arizona are used to. Tommy Day out there in Arizona, he got the job after being Gonzaga, Mark Few's assistant. But again, they haven't really. Arizona's got some lofty standards, man. I can tell you that. And they got a big bag. They got a big NIL bag. And this is going to be the new scrutiny on some of these coaches. We spend all of this money, and we didn't get a result. And that's going to be the new scrutiny. All right, NC State, Will Wade, I got them up here. I think they're going to be good. They got some people that are solid. They've got some transfers coming in, and Wade is a good coach, and he's not going to sleep. They're going to be talented. NC State, I moved them into 20. I got Creighton here. You know, Doug McDermott's a fabulous coach, but again, where are you going to be in the Big East? Are you going to be above UConn? Are you going to be below UConn? You're certainly not above St. John's. It's interesting, but that's a tough job. Illinois, Kansas at 23, Pete. They're bringing in Darren Peterson, okay? Darren Peterson might be as good as DeBonsa, okay? They're the number 1 and 2 high school players in the country. They're bringing in Darren Peterson. Now, is Darren Peterson going to be all of that to try and take up for the big kid they lost inside, Hunter Dickinson, some of the guard play that they've had over the years. They just seem to have fallen off a little bit in this NIL game, and it's surprising to me because I think they were one of the first guys to drop those big bags. They dropped it on Dickinson, and I think people shook their head a little bit. But you got St. Mary's at 24, and I put Marquette in there. I put Marquette in there right away, okay? Give them the 25. I like what Shaka's doing, but they lost a lot in the last 3 years. Oso Ighodaro, Tyler Kolek, and now Cam Jones. That's probably 5,000 points that you lost in 2 years. That's a lot. Now, can they and one of the things I like, and I've said this about Shaka Smart, again, maybe they're trying to be heat culture, in the college game, but they're not trying to bring in a billion guys and going to the portal and doing all this other stuff. But I wonder if that's going to work. I applaud Shaka Smart for trying to keep his program real and for keeping the wheels on, but that may not be to benefit you. All right, so let's just run through the top 10, all right, and give you the top 10 ESPN players right now that are coming into college and where are they going. I think you're going to see a little bit of a trend here, but it ain't like it used to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it matter anymore?
Well, it matters in this level because you're not seeing in this top 10, Kentucky don't have none of these players.
That's what I'm saying. Are they all going to second-tier colleges for a year or two and then transferring in the portal?
You would think that, but Duke's in here. Houston's in here. They're getting in here, but I think what they're doing is they're solely in the portal. They don't want these high school guys.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, they're going, and I think Pitino alluded to that. He said, we lose R.J. Lewis, we lose this guy, we lose that guy. We can't find their replacements in high school. Yeah. Not going to bring in high school players to replace those three guys. And I think that's the mantra just about everywhere. But if you're in this top 10, though, Pete, they're going to grab you. They're going to give you NIL money because you're good enough. All right, A.J. DeBonsa, the number one ESPN has. Again, Darren Peterson, DeBonsa, back and forth, 1-2, 1-2. But he signed with BYU. Now, Darren Peterson is going to Kansas. That's blue blood. All right, that's the normal. All right, Cam Boozer comes in number 3. He's going to Duke. Caleb Wilson, this was big for North Carolina, might have saved Hubert Davis's job. But Caleb Wilson, number 5. You have Nate Ament going to Tennessee, 6'9" guard going to Tennessee. Rick Barnes is going to love him. And then you got Caleb Wilson, big man, coming into North Carolina, the number 5 in the country. And that's about as high as North Carolina's gotten a guy in a long, long time. You can be sure they spent a bundle on him, Pete. All right, so then you got Chris Senack for Houston, Darius Acuff for Arkansas, Michael Brown going to Louisville, Tunde Yesufu going to Baylor, and Koa Pete going to Arizona. All right, but then I put it together like this for you. Duke gets number 3, Boozer, number 16, his brother Boozer, and this kid Nicholas Kaminia, who's number 15. So they go 3, 16, and 15. They're doing their best to stay out of that portal as best they can, but not everybody gets the guys that they get. Arkansas took Darius Acuff, number 7, and Malik Thomas, number 11. You ain't never going to see Calipari outside this top 15, whatever school he's working for.
Right.
Houston took Senack, Isaiah Harwell at 14, and Kingston Flemings at 22. This guy Sampson's got it going on over there. They got it rolling. They've been able to retain some of their own players, but it doesn't seem to matter because they got program integrity. They're playing defense. They're getting after it. And then Arizona took Koa Pete and Braden Burris. So that's where it is. It's a wide open show now. I think you're going to see at some point some crazy mid-major coach who's able to put together a couple of $1 million in his program, and he's going to offer that to one guy who's like the best player in the country and say, come to St. Bonaventure. We've got $6 million for you. Why not? If you find the right guy, and the guy who's willing to do that, these mid-majors now have the same opportunity as everybody else to bag it up and to do what they can do.
Man, that's going to break the NCAA right there.
I think they already broke it, Pete. I think they already broke it. All right, we've got 100. Grab your hats, folks. 103 days until the next college basketball season breaks. I know everybody's pumped up, everybody's fired up, but this is, You know, it's an interesting take here because I wanted to go through this. This is something I saw online, and it's the All SEC 2020 team. All right, now the SEC, everybody says, is so dominant, and they have been.
Okay.
But when you go through their first, second, and third team, you tell me who's this NBA star that's out here. You tell me who's the guy who came out of the SEC since 2020 and tearing it up, because those are the results you look for. You look at Kentucky's program and look at the amount of littering the NBA they've done. What Calipari's been able to do, unbelievable. All right, first team is Mark Sears out of Alabama, Dalton Connect from Tennessee, Brandon Miller, Janai Broom, and Oscar Shibwe. Now, in terms of the pros, right now, Brandon Miller was the pick for the Charlotte Hornets. He's probably doing the best there, but he ain't tearing it up upstairs.
No.
Second team, Zakai Ziegler. He might not. I think he just signed with a team in Italy. He's not even going to make the NBA. Walter Clayton, I love. Kobe Brown is at Missouri and then went to the Clippers but hasn't done much. Jabari Smith. Walker Kessler at the Jazz. He's another guy the Jazz have that's pretty solid. But again, ain't none of those guys tearing up the NBA right now. Third team, Wade Taylor the fourth. He might not even make a team. Scottie Pippen Jr. doing very, very well in the pros. Antonio Reeves, Colin Murray Boyles, Colin Castleton. I just don't know, Pete. Where are all the superstars? If that league's as good as they're saying, where are all the NBA players reflecting in it? I'll tell you something else. A lot of them are coming out of Europe, Pete. A lot of them. There it is, Zakai Ziegler. He signs with a pro team in France. Nanterre 92, whoever they are. He comes out of Tennessee, and he was in the NBA, got into some summer league stuff, and then he got an offer from one of those teams and go. All right, I'm going to hold off with our Big East poll. We got all of the top 5 Power 5 polls. I'll hold off on that till next year. Here's what we're going to close with, Pete. We've got the best 5 college basketball teams ever. I didn't pick them. All right? I didn't pick them.
All right.
But it's an interesting conversation. Number 5, Florida in 2007. 35-5. That was Billy Donovan's crew. Unbelievable. Definitely one of the best college teams of all time. Now you go to 4, Duke in 1999. This team right here, the Duke 99 team, 37-2. It's the only team here that did not win the national championship, Pete. Who did they lose to? Take a guess.
Kentucky?
Nope. UConn.
Ooh, okay.
Lost to Jim Calhoun's UConn team. That Duke team had five first-rounders on it, all the way to the national championship game, and lost. Kentucky, 2012, John Calipari, his only title of all time, 38-2. The great Anthony Davis was on that team, and that was a really, really loaded team. Duke in 2001, 35-4. Coach K, Shane Battier, great team. Unbelievable. And then you got Connecticut in 99, 34-2 with Rip Hamilton, and that is the team that beat the number 4 team, Duke, for the national championship. That was a great, great year in college basketball. Pete, again, we're through the fastest hour in college basketball, pro basketball. We got a few minutes, right?
Yep.
All right. I put down a couple of things just to really, really log it in and just give you a perspective of where I think we're at. And if I can help at all, let me just throw this out there, okay? So we got 2 minutes to close. I'm going to give it to you. How the NBA forges some solutions, okay? This is the NBA Solution Board. And I want to talk to all of our In the Zone people. Put some of your ideas up there. Follow us on Facebook, some of the other places we are, Twitter, and those places. And follow us and let us know what you think. Because I got 13 things right here. I'm going to read them out. And I think that if they enact any of all of these 13 things, they'll be moving in the right direction. I don't say it's a solve-all. It's going to take care of everything. But I do think that there's a way to go here, and I think that's what they should do. Number one, they will never do this, but I would love to see it happen. Number one, eliminate the salary cap. If a team, the luxury tax, eliminate all of it. If they want to release Dame Lillard from the Milwaukee Bucks on his contract, there's no way the Milwaukee Bucks should be holding on to $23 million of his contract. He doesn't work there anymore. They cut him. It's like getting fired. You don't work there anymore. Now, should they have had to pay him out his contract? Yeah. No question about it. They got to give them the full number, whatever it was. They got to give it to them. But it shouldn't work against them on the salary cap moving forward so they can't sign other players. Because you see what happens to bad teams. They get bad, make bad decisions, and now they rot. Now they stink, and they're going to the bottom fast. So that might be a way to eliminate some of that because the NBA's got a bottom problem. All right, play 10-minute quarters, Pete. Play 10-minute quarters. Knock out the 12-minute quarters, go down to 10-minute quarters, make the game 40 minutes, and make it more concise. Eliminate all illegal defense rules. They're anathema to basketball. Eliminate all illegal defensive rules. They are an anathema to the game of basketball. Okay, remove the charge semicircle that's underneath the basket. A charge is a charge is a charge no matter where on the court it occurs, folks. All right, 30-second shot clock, 24 is too short. You come down, that's why you got all these bad shots. You got all this terrible offense. Give them a little more time. Yeah, your scoring might not be as good on some of those West Coast teams, but get it down, okay? Increase the draft to 4 rounds. I got to hustle, Pete. 70-game regular season, 42 in your conference, 28 in your non-conference. Draft lottery for all 30 teams, evenly weighted. Nobody gets a bump. Nobody gets a, how did that happen? Everybody gets evenly weighted. All 30 teams go into the lottery. Hire better coaches. Get rid of all your retreads. Doc Rivers has been fired more times than a Civil War cannon. Halftime, 10 minutes. Put them out, put them in. This halftime of 15, 20 minutes, way, way too long. Okay? The Hornet Holiday rule. If you give a kid an Xbox, the kid gets the Xbox. No trade deadline. Let them trade all the way up to the playoffs. Who cares? And again, top 8 in the playoff format only. No play-in games. You're back to 8-8, and we rock and roll from there. Pete, we did it. Another great week. Thank you for all of our zoners. We'll see you next week in the zone, baby.